Right, this is a brief overview of ProcessMaker, but in particular, we're going to focus on the COVID-19 loan relief program put out by the SBA. So under part of the CARE Act, the Paycheck Protection Program loan process. So quick orientation to ProcessMaker. It is a full web-based application. You'll notice there's a navigation menu on the left. Right now I'm signed in as an administrator, but you have different permission sets and different views for different users, whether that be a loan officer, branch manager, etc. In particular, we're looking at the request in flight right now. We also can look at designer. The designer gives you the ability to drag and drop and build processes. We'll look at that, as well as web forms and also drag and drop, as well as connection to other third-party systems. So we'll look at that all in a bit more detail. To begin with, though, I want to start by initiating a loan request on behalf of a client done by an internal staff member, in particular, a paycheck protection loan. So I'm going to start new request. And in this case, I'm role-playing a loan officer. You'll notice that I have two different processes, one that can be initiated off the website and one that can be done internally. Now, the reason I highlight this is just as we are able to have this initiated by an internal staff member, it can also be easily published on your website. It could even be embedded directly within everything that you already do. So for example, you'll see I have a digital account opening request here on a fictitious bank website. The potential account owner and or borrower can fill out different components, including things like beneficial ownership, all the regulatory requirements, request accounts, they can request loans, and you'll notice in particular we have the COVID-19 relief program here, where they can fill out an easy web form. They can do this as part of a specific COVID request or in conjunction with other requests, and then review, attest, and finalize. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to fire this off as if I'm an internal staff member. So I'm going to hit start. You'll notice initially the person I'm role-playing, the loan officer, has a form where they can review the information. They can make selections on behalf of the client. All of this is based off of the CARE Act and the new requirements from the SBA for the application. They can fill in information, put in all of the form information they need, put in kind of all the information relevant. You'll notice that there's also logic built in. For example, if there's a franchise, there's the number of employees per franchise location. This would be based off of the requirement that allows franchisees to be anything under 500 per location. Otherwise, if they pick no, you'll notice it just says the number of employees. Same with nonprofit. If they say yes, there's other questions that may need to be provided. You'll also note that they have to provide financial information. So we're just going to plug in some basic information here. Again, in this case, I'm role-playing the loan officer, or I'm able to fill this out on behalf of the client. You'll notice that some of the other requirements will ultimately flag the system so that we can set up rules that either auto-reject, auto-approve, or require further review. And again, I'm filling out what I can. I can add additional owners, additional information required by the SBA. One of the particular things that is allowed here is that the SBA is now allowing loan officers to fill this out on behalf of the client. So I can very easily throw this in here. You'll notice that the SBA is even allowing fees to be charged, although most of our clients are saying that they're going to provide this, of course, free of charge. And simply complete that. So by completing that web form, it's firing off a portal for the client, which would send via email, but just for demonstration purposes, I'll go straight to that task. You'll notice the client now sees all the information that's filled out on their behalf. They can edit or add to any of the components. And now you'll notice one, that they can attest, or rather give permission to the SBA. So a progressive workflow that automatically adds in the appropriate things in order to submit this request, including, for example, bank information to automatically fund the information, as well as attestation that they have to authorize and certify. You'll see that it even has the additional statements, for example, the terms and conditions put out by the SBA. And then the client submits that. It will then ultimately send it back, in this case, for review to the loan officer. The loan officer now reviews all that information, continues to scroll through, make sure everything is good. Everything looks good. They complete that request. And now it's going to go in submission for approval. So what we're going to see, if we go back to the request view, we'll see that this particular process has had all of these tasks completed. It was initiated, sent to the client, reviewed. You can see a summary of what's happening, what's been completed, by whom and when. You can also see all the forms as they've been filled out. So for example, if I expand this, you'll see the form as it was filled out. It gives a full audit trail of everything. You can easily, of course, review this at any time. It's always tracked by the system, but you can also just print it out to PDF or to a printer right there. You'll also note that it fired off what we like to call actions by email. What actions by email provide is a way to engage with a workflow without having to be logged in as a particular user. So oftentimes we see this is done when we have executives at an institution who don't want to have to learn a new system. They don't really need new credentials. Everything will be that's informational that needs to be sent as part of this workflow can be sent directly in an email from ProcessMaker automatically. And then, of course, the approver will simply vote by buttons, whether that's approve, reject, send back, etc. So let me just pull up my email here. I have a Gmail account linked to this, so you can kind of see what it would look like. And what you'll notice is that, whoops, wrong filter there. You'll notice it sent a request. Please approve this SBA request for a business for XYZ. And of course, you can vote with the approve, reject, and in this case, I just have the button to say more info. So what this all did is fired off a fully digital process. In this case, I showcased it getting initiated by a loan officer, sent to the client, then come back for review, and then on to approval. And then ultimately, it's going to submit to the loan portal e-tran with the SBA. But I also quickly highlighted how you could incorporate this directly within a traditional account opening or loan request portal, which ProcessMaker has also done with many of their clients. Now let me show you how that workflow works now. If we look at the back end, this is now the design view. All of this is drag and drop. You'll notice it's, of course, built out of the box right now, but if I need to rearrange or change tasks, I can do so and simply connect in sequence flow where everything needs to be. So there's no coding required here to make any modifications to this or to make configuration changes that are unique for your particular institution. In this case, you'll see that I have different swim lanes for the different actors, the client, the loan officer, maybe a senior lender, and then the system ultimately. And it can either be initiated by internal staff where they fill out that form, it goes to the portal to the client and comes back for review, or it can come in off the website as I showcased as well. The system also has a rules capability. So if we want to build in rules to basically streamline some of these requests coming in, especially as many of our clients are saying they're inundated with these right this moment, we could basically do like a red light, yellow light, green light approach where the rule comes in and automatically rejects some, where maybe the criteria off of the application automatically declines them. It could be an automatic approval, again, if the financial institution is comfortable with certain criteria to auto approve. And then of course, if it requires human approval and review, it can then go to that swim lane to the loan officer, back to the approver, and then ultimately on to E-Tran and submission for the SBA. Each of these tasks are then tied to web forms. So for example, if I look at this portal here task, you'll see it's tied to a screen. And we have a fully built web form builder that's all drag and drop as well, just like the process modeler. So you'll see I have my little web form here with the different questions. If I want to add a question, super simple. So maybe, for example, I make this first name. And now if I preview this, you'll see there the new field. And we have all different options, whether it's text box, drop-down menus, toggle switches, date fields, navigation, etc. So these can be simple or complex web forms. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, we have the actions by email. And this is also tied to one of those forms, but sent out and with specific approval functions. And that adds those buttons in the email that we saw. And finally, we have our data connector object that we can easily drag and drop in. And this allows us to set up a secure connection with any third-party system, and then simply pick what we want to do, in this case, forward the information to the SBA, and then complete the process. Hopefully this has been a helpful overview of ProcessMaker through the lens of the SBA Paycheck Protection Program. Of course, all kinds of other functionality and components that ProcessMaker helps financial institutions with all the time. We'd be happy to explore this as well as any other components that you'd like to look at.